Good morning, one and all. I'm Devika Kannan, and this is my colleague Mr. Sebin B. Nadiri from Public Affairs Center, welcoming you all in this chilly morning for an expert panel discussion on assessing governance of states.
Prime Minister has really put forward minimum government and maximum governance, and that has really put the focus on the word governance and on governance in the nation. Everybody is talking about governance today, and everything from the floods in Chennai to the garbage across the street is linked in one way or the other to governance. Good governance, or mostly the lack of it, has been the talking point of the whole nation. And and in a marked change, probably everyone is now actively taking part in the debate. Everyone has a view, everyone has a say on whatever's going around in the country. And as a popular news show host would say, the nation wants to know.
I would introduce Public Affairs Center here. Public Affairs Center, which was a brainchild of Dr. Samuel Paul, was established in 1998, with a mandate to improve the quality of governance in India. In this regard, Public Affairs Center undertakes and supports research and facilitates collective citizen action through awareness raising and capacity building activities. The vision of PAC stands as committed to good governance.
Without further ado, to kickstart the proceedings for the day, may I invite Professor Soni Pellisheri to welcome the gathering.
Good morning, everyone. I am standing here to welcome on behalf of National Law School. I am standing in the shoes of Professor Jaffet, who was supposed to welcome the gathering, but he has a commitment to Vidhan Saudha as part of International Minority Rights Day. It's a great pleasure to collaborate in this seminar program with the Public Affairs Center around a very important topic in which law school, particularly the public policy program, have got a great interest. And I thank Dr. C.K. Matthew for taking the initiative and thinking of joining and collaborating with us in this program. I also welcome eminent panelists who are here, Sri P.K. Bhattacharya, Dr. Tangraj, Nirmala Murthy, Vivek Kulkarni, Professor Babu Matthew, who himself is our own faculty here. And I'm sure we are going to have very vibrant discussion after initial presentation of the discussion. So we welcome this eminent panelist amongst us on behalf of NLSNU. We also have among us faculty members from law school. I can see Professor Sangeeta, Professor Narsim Reddy, maybe others are as well here. I welcome them here, and I have seen many of our public policy students. I'm sure there are some law students as well here. Briefly about what law school does. Law school celebrated its 25th anniversary a year back. And it began as a cutting-edge cutting-edge school or education system for law. In the past, and it traditionally did a 5-year BA LLB course and a 2-year LLM course, which now has become 1-year LLM course due to UGC regulations, and PhD program in law. In past couple of years, there is quite a lot of change in law school, where a new program of public policy, which is an interdisciplinary program of economics, political science, sociology, law was introduced. And that is the context in which we are collaborating with this study on governance. Apart from this regular academic program, we also have got a vibrant distance education program, in which one of the very popular program is Master of Business Law, which many working professionals take benefit by attending the courses and participating in the law school program. Apart from this, we also have many research centers. A research center from which public policy program has come up is Center for Study of Social Exclusion and Inclusive Policy. where we look at where law interfaces with the inequality issues and issues of poverty. And this is a great opportunity to collaborate, because the issues that we are going to discuss here, governance compared to government, or whether we should compare that at all, some of these discussions are going to come, are quite relevant to these issues that Center is grappling with, as well as the public policy program is grappling with. I also welcome members from PAC. They don't need to be welcomed, we are partners, and also public from the city. I'm sure many students and professionals have come here to listen and enrich these discussions. So with this brief word of welcome, let me invite, and let me not be on the way to have this great discussion and debate over good governance. Let me welcome all of you.
Good morning, everyone, ladies and gentlemen, and distinguished panel members. Greetings from Public Affairs Center this morning here at National Law School of India University. My name is Dr. Meena Nair. I work with Public Affairs Center. I've been with the center for about 10 years now. I actually stand in for our director, Mr. R. Suresh. We established Public Affairs Center in 1994, and this began with actually a very small experiment that was carried out in 1993 by our founder, Dr. Samuel Paul, who unfortunately is no more. He passed away very recently on October 26th. He was the director of Indian Institute of Management, Ahmedabad, after which he did a lot of stints with very well-known worldwide organizations like the World Bank and UN agencies. He has been our guiding spirit, so for us it was a big setback when we saw him succumb to a certain illness. So this whole experiment was about him coming to Bangalore in 1992-93, wanting to set up his house in Koramangala and facing a lot of uphill problems with the civic agencies when he wanted very simple things like water connection, electricity connection and all that. So he called all his friends together. I'm sure Dr. Nirmala Murthy has been associated with Dr. Paul personally for a very long time. She would know about this. Where they came together and said, why don't we find out whether people from across the city are actually facing the same problem or not, and if so, what is the proportion and how do we present this? So that started off this whole flagship product that we came out with called the Citizen Report Card, where we actually talk to users about the services that they are using, find out about their experience with each of those public services through a questionnaire, through a very sound statistical sampling design, and collect this information, compile it, and then present it to the governments. So our first experiment was in 1993, and when this experiment turned out to be a success in terms of the service provider which got the least ranking actually came back to us and wanted a smaller study done only for their department, we realized that this approach has some merit, and because of which the second thing was the setting up of Public Affairs Center. We have been here for about 20 years now. This is actually our 21st year. And basically our vision, as we said, is working towards improving governance in India. We have worked in almost all states, though we are placed only in Bangalore, but with other states we work very closely with very long standing NGO partners. We have worked in other countries as well. So the Citizen Report Card as an approach has gone ahead with a lot of resounding successes coming across from various countries. When Dr. Matthew joined us, Dr. Matthew is the ex-Chief Secretary of the Government of Rajasthan. He joined us as a Senior Ford Fellow. He is now a very senior advisor with us. And when he talked about why don't we look at the state of governance across states, we jumped at the opportunity. We wanted to take this forward. We hope that this will become our next flagship product. So please this is our first panel discussion where we are trying to present our themes and indicators and the way we have come out with our ideas. So please do feel free to give your feedback so that we can make this a much better product. Now I would like to quickly introduce our very distinguished panel members. Mr. B.K. Bhattacharya is the retired Chief Secretary, Government of Karnataka. We knew him when he was Chairman of Expenditure Reforms Commission. He had come to Public Affairs Center. We did a small study on some urban programs with him. Then we have Mr. D. Thangaraj, who is the retired RTI Commissioner of the Government of Karnataka. We have Dr. Nirmala Murthy, who is founder and president, Foundation for Research in Health Systems, and also a very long associate of Public Affairs Center and Public Affairs Foundation. We have Mr. Vivek Kulkarni, a former bureaucrat, and right now he's MD of Brickworth Ratings and also our board member. Then we have Professor Babu Matthew, who is a faculty of National Law School working on constitutionalism. So let's proceed. Thank you.
Now that the introduction is over, I'm going to jump direct into the subject. More than 65 years ago, we the people of India have still kept the country together and given us a blueprint for our progress. The fact that it has been amended stands to its credit because it has been able to adjust to our aspirations and our requirements. In the same way, we the people of India also give to ourselves every 5 years an elected government. And that government is supposed to fulfill the aspirations of the people. Whether it does or it does not is a matter of debate. But as we go along, we'll try to see what we are trying to do is to place statistical data for an intangible subject like governance. How do you measure governance? As I enter the subject, I am reminded of James Keynes, well known to all of you, whose economic philosophy still motivates and gives a thrust to governments across the world. And he said, what do governments do? All governments, whether it is democracy, monarchy, oligarchy, autocracy, all of them deal primarily with these three subjects: economic efficiency, social justice, and individual liberty. And the balance between these three determines the kind of government we are. If you give too much emphasis on economics, you may lose out on social justice. If you give too much emphasis on individual liberty, you may lose out on economic efficiency. So the balance between these three basic concepts of government will determine what kind of governance we have. Now the premise with which we begin is that governance as a measure of government rose to prominence after 1997, the famous World Bank report, which arose again because of its disenchantment, World Bank's disenchantment with what it is doing in the sub-Saharan countries, in the African countries. A lot of money was pushed in. Structural adjustment programs took place, but nothing was improving. Governance was not improving. So the World Bank's 1997 seminal report said that the tendency to move away from government, move away from basic services that many countries were demonstrating is wrong. Government has to be right there. right where it is happening. Side by side with that, we have the rising aspirations of the people. Media is so strong today. You can connect to anybody across the world in a flash of a second. Governance is therefore becoming every day a critical measure of how the government is performing. As far as India is concerned, as we have already mentioned, what we call MG squared, maximizing governance, minimizing government, as Prime Minister Modi said. In India, it is complex because the Constitution clearly says what the government of India can do and what the government of the state can do in the three lists. But India is not one nation in the sense that we encourage, we embrace pluralism. We permit ideological differences to take place. We permit state aspirations to grow. We permit freedom of expression. So in this present context, especially when Mr. Modi has made that claim that he would maximize governance and minimize government, we are in search of a unique combination, a metrics on how to measure governance. I must tell you that there are other studies already doing it. We are all aware of India Today's annual exercise called the State of the States Annual Report, which has just come out. We have other indices like the World Bank Ease of Doing Business. We have annual GDP and per capita income figures coming out produced by the Government of India. Each ministry ranks the various states according to performance. Department of Administrative Reforms in the Government of India has brought out a massive matrix of 146 indicators to judge, to measure governance. And Vipek Debroy's study, which you must be familiar with, Cato's study on economic freedom. How do states measure on economic freedom? So we are not saying that our study is unique, but it's different. And why is it different? So just 5 years after independence, Jawaharlal Nehru, our first Prime Minister, said with much sorrow, he said, India is free, but everywhere there are iniquities. Our women are, to me, they are in a worse position than they were years ago. Yes, our literacy rate has grown from 18% to 74%. But the gap between male literacy and female literacy remains the same, about 18-20%, even after 65 years. Yes, we are the 7th largest economy in the world. Our IT infrastructure is the envy of the world. We have the ability to send a spaceship to Mars. But right on the ground, are people getting access to health, to education? Are the Dalits getting justice? These are important questions we have to judge, we have to examine and evaluate as we go into the study of governance. So why is our study different? Like the Maggi sauce, it's different for 2 or 3 reasons. One, we are looking at movement. We are not looking at a snapshot picture. We are not looking at the situation as today. Rather, we will look at a 3-year period. 3-year period. Has the state moved forward or backwards in the 3-year period? 2, we are looking at processes, not merely outcomes. Process by which change is taking place. And therefore, we have this unenviable task of arriving at a set of indicators which will capture this complexity. And that is why I think our study is going to be different from other studies. So what is the structure of our report? Our PAC study has 3 tiers. It's a hierarchy of 3 tiers. We have 10 broad themes which we hope captures the entire gamut of activities that a government performs. 10 themes. Under that level, under that hierarchy, we have 25 focus subjects. That means each theme will have 1 or 2 focus subjects. And each of the focus subjects has several specific indicators. And I'll take you through that list as we go along. So it's a kind of a triangle, 10 themes, 25 focus subjects, 67 indicators. And we are trying to churn out data from these 67 indicators, which will reflect the kind of governance that we are going through at this point of time. What is the level and quality of governance in the states of India? Now, what are these broad themes? Keeping governance in the middle, we have placed the 10 themes around it. For example, we are looking at infrastructure, human development. It's all in your, I think, in your handouts given to you. Social protection, fiscal management, women and child issues, environment, transparency and accountability, law and order, economic freedom, and resource management. These are the 10 broad themes. And within those themes, we have 25 focus subjects. It will be a little more clearer as we go along. I don't want to read through this. It's being repeated again. This is important because we are trying to, as I said, capture not everything. We cannot capture 1,000 indicators, but broadly something that will reflect the level of governance in our country. These are the 25 subjects. I'm going to just quickly run through the themes, the focus subjects, and the indicators so that you get a broad idea of what is happening. Theme 1 is essential infrastructure. The figure in bracket 10 is the weightage given to that particular theme. As I said, there are 10 themes. So 10 into 10, 100 points will be granted for all the 10 themes. So theme 1, essential infrastructure, carries 10 marks. Within that, we have got 4 focus subjects. Two are depicted here, 2 will come in the next slide. So each of the focus subjects have 25 marks. And under each of these focus subjects, these are the specific indicators that we are going to examine. In power, we are looking at T&D losses. Why are we looking at T&D losses? Why not some other indicator? Because we feel that the intent of the government to reduce T&D losses is something within its own competence. A state may not have the wherewithal to create a new power station. Power stations are created with other considerations, where water is available, where coal is available. It may not have these facilities. So power is there, but what is the state doing to reduce losses? The direct intervention of the state is reflected in the state's ability to reduce T&D losses. Per capita consumption of power is an outcome. You have total power divided by population is per capita consumption. As I said, while we are looking at processes, we cannot ignore, in certain cases, we cannot ignore outcomes also. So we have taken, because it resembles or it reflects whether the per capita consumption of a particular state is rising. Not only because new power sector plants are coming up, but also because of losses being reduced and more efficient management of power. Percentage of households electrified. You know, up to 10 years ago, a village used to be called electrified if it had just one street light. In the data book of Government of India, if there is one street light in that village, it's called electrified. But about 10 years ago, they changed it. And the percentage of households electrified becomes a better indicator. So is the state doing anything to increase coverage of households by electricity? That is why we have taken this. In the same way, water, percentage of households with safe drinking water, percentage of irrigated areas to total agricultural land. Again, you see, this is something that the state can intervene. There is a certain amount of water in the state. Currently, about 30% of agricultural land is irrigated. 70% depends on the rain. So if a state is able to enhance the irrigated area, irrigated agricultural area, it means the state is committed to improving life of the farmers, improving productivity in agriculture. And we have added 2 yes or no questions. Does the state have a water regulatory commission? Yes or no? Does the state have groundwater regulation act? Yes or no? So as you can see, it's not merely the overall picture, but what the state is doing. What is the intent of the state? What is the commitment of the state towards achieving the goal of water conservation? Within essential infrastructure, as I said, two more focus subjects, roads and communication. What is the percentage of surface roads to total roads? Because the ability of the state to transform dirt roads into surface roads is very much with the state. The state can do it. Government of India is not coming down to the state and say you blacktop particular road. They're not going to say that. State government will do it. The density of the roads per population, per unit of population. Percentage of households with cell phone. Cell phone is a revolution in our country. I think perhaps no other country has reached the kind of penetration we have. But we thought it's a good indication, state-wise, to compare. And the fourth focus subject within the theme of essential infrastructure is housing, 25% weightage, where we are looking at pakka houses, full-fledged permanent houses, not kacha houses. Percentage of slum population to urban population, which is growing because of migration from rural to urban areas. And percentage of households with toilets, which reflects a certain sense of sanitation and cleanliness in the not only villages but urban areas also across the country. The second theme, as I said, there are 10 themes. The second theme, we have taken only two focus subjects, that is education and health, with equal weightage. The specific indicators we have identified is the EDI, as you know, Educational Development Index, which is a national norm prepared by the Ministry of Education, Human Resource Development, 30% marks for that. The ACER reports, which you are all aware of. I must mention here that we have invariably depended on government data available in the public domain, so that there is no question later. We're not resorting to private data sources. But this is an exception, because ACER is produced by Pratham, but it has a high sense of reliability and accuracy, so we are taking it. ACER reflects the learning skills, learning abilities of children, and frankly speaking, after 67 years of independence, learning levels are going down, not improving. That's why we put it here. Number of higher education institutions to lakh population, percentage of education expenditure to the state GDP. You know, in 1966-67, Kothari Commission had prescribed 6% of GDP as the norm for expenditure on education. We are far from that. No state has achieved it. So we think that a state which invests more and more in education shows better governance. Similarly, in health, infant mortality rate, population served per public hospital bed. If you have government hospitals, there is a statistics available in government which says one bed is servicing how much population. The more beds, the better the ratio. So that, I think, is a good indicator of how involved the government is in improving health. Full immunization, and again percentage of health expenditure to SGDP. Theme 3 is social protection. We are looking at 4 focus subjects, namely public distribution system. We are looking at offtake. I must take a second here. The National Food Security Act, which came in 2013, provides for subsidized food grains to almost 75% of the population of this country. Actually, it is 50% in urban areas and 75% in rural areas. Roughly, you may say, if you match it, maybe 60-65%. But the sad fact is that only 15 states have adopted the National Food Security Act as its basis for public distribution. The remaining have not even looked at it. Nevertheless, there was a PDS even before the National Food Security Act came in. So the government of India allots food grains to the state. How much of that grain is being lifted and brought to the state for actual distribution, people will living below poverty line and eligible families, that we think is an important indicator because it's a part of social protection. Second Focus subject is social justice. We are looking at pension beneficiaries. There is an old scheme, which is called the Indira Gandhi Old Age Pension Scheme, in existence for the last maybe 15 years. We feel that this is not being exploited as much as it should be. When there is money available to give the poorest of the poor, the oldest of our society, it's our duty to look after old people, like me, I suppose. So how many people are getting protection from the government by way of social pension is an important indicator of the concern of that government for the poorest. So if it's doing well, if a state is doing well, it means good. There is commitment from the state. Percentage of households with no land. Despite a large land reforms program in the country, where land which is not utilized for agriculture is taken out, sometimes even acquired and redistributed amongst poor people, it's a good indicator of how much the government feels poor people should have land. Again, the remaining two, minority welfare, we had a little problem in identifying what are the schemes we could look at for minority, but we could only get these figures of pre-metric scholarship. A large program for giving scholarship to children of minorities up to 10th, I think, right? 10th or 12th? 10th, yeah. Similarly, employment, what is the unemployment rate per state? And the percentage of population which are casual labor. We have no fixed employment. Maybe they get a few days under Narega or some other casual labor. So the higher the percentage of people with just casual labor, the worse off that state would be. This is how we have interpreted it. Theme 4 is women and children. Two subjects. We have looked at working women population ratio. The better, more number of women working, the better. Institutional delivery, how many women are going to medical institutions for delivery. How many women are getting the benefit of the Janani Suraksha Yojana, which is a certain lump sum amount given on each delivery. And what is female literacy? As we said, female literacy is still very much behind, almost 20 points behind male literacy. Again, on the other side, children with 60% weightage, crimes against children. You may be aware that about maybe 4 or 5 years ago, a spate of laws was brought out by the government of India for all offences against children. So we want to look at what are the kinds of crimes against children in the states, percentage of child labour, percentage of beneficiaries under the Integrated Child Development Scheme, the child sex ratio. Sometime, I think I must have met some of you long ago, we talked about child sex ratio, declining. The higher the economic growth, the worse off the woman, the girl child is, her fate is worse off. Why is that? State where I come from, two districts, Sikar and Junjunu, highest education parameters. Girls, boys, higher education, school education, best in the whole state. But the worst child sex ratio in these districts. Why is that happening? These are all developments post-independence, because it's worsening. And finally, the percentage of malnourished children. I must mention here that the UNICEF Rapid Survey of Children, RSOC, was brought out at the behest of the state government. They carried out the survey. UNICEF presented its report to the Government of India, and the Government of India suppressed it because figures were not very comfortable. But it's available. If you search for it, you'll find it. So we thought that's a very important indicator of how concerned the state is about the welfare of children. Theme 5, law and order. We're looking at 3 areas. Violent crimes. We have taken the most heinous crimes: rapes, murders, and dowry deaths. Is the rate increasing, coming down, static? We want to look at that. Atrocities. Now, violent crimes are crimes committed by one person against another, whereas in atrocities, the state commits the crime. So, custodial deaths, the most heinous type of crime that a state can commit on an individual. But following due process of law, You arrest a person, bring him under police custody, and then he's finished. What kind of justice is that? Police firing. Now, we are a little doubtful about police firing because it may be to maintain law and order. It may be because of the carelessness of some person who could not anticipate and control the situation, but we are taking that as an indicator. And the third subject is policing. Simple one indicator, how many police personnel are there per unit of population. So this is law and order, delivery of justice, looking at two focus subjects, pendency of cases in the high courts and the district courts, and the vacancies in the courts. We feel that if a government is not taking action to fill up vacancies of presiding officers, the cases will drag on. So the more vacancies there are, the less that state is concerned for delivering justice. So vacancies in high court and vacancies in district courts. Theme 7, environment, looking at 3 areas. So we're looking at emissions, suspended particulate matter, SO2 emissions, nitrous dioxide emissions, and environmental violations. Second focus subject is forest cover and renewable energy, increase and decrease in forest cover, and renewable energy. What is the percentage of renewable energy to total power? Because our power is based on traditional sources, which are not renewable, a state which focuses attention on renewable, non-conventional energy is demonstrating better awareness of the situation, moving towards a better system of energy security. Theme 9, transparency and accountability, 2 focus subjects. In transparency, adherence to Section 4 RTI, you are aware of it, Right to Information Act. The Right to Public Services Act, I think about 20 odd states have already enacted the statute regarding right to public services, which is really a justiciable right given to the citizens to claim their services, public services. And also, if the state is moving towards e-governance, the number of services being provided under the e-governance plan of the IT ministry to the citizens of the state. Second is public accountability. We're looking at Lokayukt, looking at percentage of anti-corruption cases disposed of, percentage of Gram Panchayats covered under social audit. And I must mention here, the Narega Act is perhaps one of the only acts in the country which provides in its provisions social audit. That is, getting the people involved in auditing the works being executed under Narega. So those Gram Panchayats who carry out social audit of Narega works, I think they show a greater sense of evolution, greater sense of responsibility, and will bring greater accountability to the system. And finally, to the Panchayat Devolution Index. One word on this. After the 73rd, 74th Amendment, which you are aware of, devolving powers to municipal bodies and Panchayat Raj institutions, many states did not take it up. Many states ignored it. So the Panchayat Devolution Index is an index devised by the Government of India to assess how much of power has devolved down the hierarchy to the Panchayat. Funds, functions, functionaries. I think you must be aware of it. In government parlance, we call it the 3 F words. Have the government taken steps to transfer funds, functions and functionaries down the line to the panchayats? And there's an index devised by the Government of India for this purpose. Fiscal management. There will be some queries here, I am sure, but I am just going to explain it. The Fiscal Regulation and Budget Management Act 2003 defined 3 indicators in the Act itself to judge whether the state is moving in the right direction of fiscal consolidation. 1, is your revenue deficit growing or reducing as a percentage of SGDP? Is your fiscal deficit growing or reducing as a percentage of SGDP? And finally, your total debt burden over the years, is it reducing or growing as a percentage of SGDP? Happy thing in our country is that revenue deficit is more or less wiped out in all the states of our country. Most states have moved into revenue surplus, but fiscal deficit is very much there. And debt burden, accumulated debt over the years, how much has it reached? Countries like Greece, which went through a crisis, it was almost 200% of GDP. How can you pay off that kind of loan? And on the revenue expenditure side, two items. Is the state doing something to enhance revenue collection? New taxes, more efficient way of tax collection. And the last point, with all the money that you get in your pocket, is the state using it for development? So what is your per capita development expenditure with the better fiscal consolidation that you've managed? What are you doing with that money? The per capita development expenditure. And finally, economic freedom. 3 indicators. We're looking at the number of IEMs filed, Industrial Entrepreneurs Memorandum filed. What does it mean? We have a spate of MOUs being signed. Every state is signing MOUs with industrialists. Rajasthan went through it recently, Maharashtra, Gujarat. But we want to know that an MOU may only be an empty promise. It is when the entrepreneur comes in and actually puts his money on the table and starts an industry, that's when things start to happen. And that process is the IEM, whereby his commitment to making that investment is made known. So that is one item we have taken. World Bank's Ease of Doing Business is a standard report which has come out very recently, and we have just adopted and accepted that policy. And finally, the SMEs, small, medium and micro, medium enterprises. We got the figures, and we are looking at the assets created by these SMEs as a percentage of SGDP. Why did we not take big industries? Because 2 reasons. One, SMEs are largely dispersed. Smaller units was dispersed. So its effect will be larger on the people. 2, employment is higher in SMEs compared to large industries. Large industries are largely automated now, and number of labor working on huge plants is getting less and less each day. So we thought SMEs will better reflect dispersal as well as higher employment. So these are the 10 themes, and I've just recited to you the focus subjects and the indicators. What have we done? We have only taken secondary data because we do not have the wherewithal to go into the field and do a practical survey on the field. As I said, most of the data is from government domain. We are focusing on processes and institutions. We are looking at 3 years data, and we have assigned, this is going to be a debatable issue, we have assigned weightages on perceived importance. Suppose I am assigning, say, 60% to a particular indicator. You can ask me always, why 60? Why not 50? Why not 70? But that's a call that we have made, not on whimsical basis, but with some reasoning, some kind of judgment. It is on that basis that we have evaluated the states. So that's one thing that you may raise. But again, I repeat, it is not merely on whims and fancies. So there's a 3-stage aggregation. We start from the right extreme. At the theme level, at the 10 themes level, we have given equal weightage. At the subject level, focus subject level, it's subjective, it varies. And at the indicator level is a formula-based indexing, which I will try to explain. The formula used is an indicator level, value minus maximum upon maximum minus minimum, which I don't know what it means. My statistical experts will explain that to you later. What it does, let me take an example here. I think that may be better. Look at this. Now, weightage for these 2 subjects. We have taken water as an example. This is an example. Drinking water, 3rd column. And 4th column, net irrigated land to cultivable land. So when you do the indexing, we have assigned 0.6 to drinking water, because drinking water we feel is more important, and irrigated land 0.4. Now if you look at the states, the minimum achieved, the minimum marking achieved based on data is 69.9. Look at the second column, Assam has 69.9, it gets zeros indexing, 0. And the state which has maximum, which is 95, second column Delhi, which will get 1 mark. So between 1 and 0, you align all the states and give them a ranking. Then you give that ranking 0.6% weightage. Similarly, you give 0.4 weightage for irrigated land and arrive at an overall water index. You may, some of you who have experience in statistics may like to discuss this issue. In the same way, for essential infrastructure, we aggregate the 4 subjects, that is water, roads, power and housing, get an overall index. And accordingly, the ranking which comes out for infrastructure is as follows. Punjab stands at the top by assigning weightages as we discussed and clubbing together all the 4 subjects. Punjab is at the top, Haryana, Gujarat, Andhra and so on. Assam and Odisha is at the bottom. We have, for convenience sake, divided the states into 2, small states and big states. And the definition is, any state with less than 2 crore population becomes a small state. Not our definition, it's what Government of India normally does in comparative statistics. So these are this is as an example to show you how we have arrived at this. In fiscal management, Uttar Pradesh stands at number 1. Surprising, eh? Now why is this surprising? Somebody has raised this issue. Why is this surprising? As I said, we are looking at 3-year development. The fact is that Uttar Pradesh has reduced its fiscal deficit considerably in the last 3 years. So it gets a high weightage. 2, there is good spending per capita development expenditure in Uttar Pradesh in the last 2-3 years. So you can ask the question, we thought that bigger states, Gujarat, Maharashtra should be doing better. But as I said, we are different. And therefore, we are going to look at not merely what the state has achieved at a certain point of time, but what it is achieving over a certain period of time. Okay? So fiscal management, Uttar Pradesh stands 1, Assam, Jharkhand. At the bottom are Haryana and Andhra Pradesh. In small states, Delhi is at the top, Himachal Pradesh at the bottom. Child and women, Kerala, as expected, stands at 1. Jharkhand, Bihar, Rajasthan at the bottom. Among small states, Manipur, Mizoram at the top, and Goa, Delhi at the bottom. As you can see, this matrix of a combination of indicators, as I am repeating this, can be challenged, can be questioned. But the fact that we have brought these things together, yes, it is our call. We stand by it. And if we fall by it, then, well, it's our failure. So we would really like to, I would really like to end this here and tell you that what are we planning to do. Today we have this discussion. As we can see, that picture at the bottom shows the discussions we are having today. I think that fellow in the blue coat is me. So after the discussion, sometime in January, we will officially launch it. After we hear feedback from you and tweak our report where required, we will be bringing out a website. Once the report is through, we will follow it up with detailed analysis and study in various journals on each of the themes. And finally, once the report comes out, we would like to take it to some of the state governments and present our findings to them.